Today's story with the virtual Celtic Junction Art Centre and the Eoin McKiernan Library is a continuation of Irish legends. These are origin stories of Newgrange, Tara in the Boyne Valley. It's author Eithne Massey, illustrated by Lisa Jackson, and today's story is Art's Quest Beyond the Seas. You cheat. There was a sudden silence. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared. Many of them had seen the invisible hands move Queen Beicama's pieces on the chessboard. Art said furiously, "You used magic. That's how you won." Beicama smiled. "Con, your son has lost and must pay a forfeit. Let him go on a quest to find the beautiful Delvecum and bring her to Tara." Now the king loved his only son, but he was completely under the spell of Beicama. "It might be better if you left Tara for a while, Art," he said, smiling nervously at his wife. Art kissed his father and left the court. The court went with him to Invercolpa, the mouth of the Boyne. Everyone knew that Beicama had set him an impossible task. Many of them cried to see him go in a small coracle. But Art didn't cry. He was glad to get away from Beicama. And as he said goodbye to the land of Ireland, so grey and barren, he was not so very sorry to leave it either. Since the day Beicama had been made queen, even the birds had stopped singing. He began his voyage across the ocean. He had no idea who Delvecum was or where she lived, but Art was brave and cheerful, and he kept going further and further into the great ocean. On his journey he was buffeted by storms and freezing winds. Sea monsters rose out of the waves and glared at him with angry eyes. Then one calm day, a dolphin swam up beside Art in his coracle and began tugging playfully at his oar. Here comes the dolphin. "You want me to come along with you then?" asked Art. And the dolphin nodded and smiled his wide dolphin smile. The dolphin led him to a beautiful island where the fairy woman Creda lived. She wanted to help Art in his quest. "Head west into the setting sun," she said. "There you will find a land full of beauty and danger, but keep going. At the other side of that land you will find an island. That is where Delvecum lives, but she is locked away against her wishes, and you will have to fight for her." Art did as Creda said. He finally came to the land far to the west. First he came to an enchanted wood. The trees dropped poison from their branches, but Art used his coracle as an umbrella. Suddenly there were two hags in front of him, blocking his way. One carried a silver cup, and the other a large bathtub. "You must be thirsty. Have a drink," the hag said, offering him the cup. "No, thank you, I'm not thirsty," said Art. Creda had warned him the cup was full of poison. "You must be tired. Rest yourself and have a bath," said the second hag. "No, thank you. I have had a wash already today," said Art, for he knew the hag would drown him in a bath of lead. So the two hags had to let him go on. The wood ended, and Art arrived at a long, narrow glen. In it lived 1,000 giant toads with tongues full of venom. Art battled his way through them and reached the foot of a high, white mountain. He climbed through ice and snow and more ice and snow until finally he crossed over the top. "Perhaps things will be quiet now for a while," thought Art hopefully. But he was wrong. At the bottom of the mountain there was a plain full of savage beasts. They roared at him. Art fought them all off with his sword. Then he came to a river, and there was a giant there, guarding the ford. Art overcame him in a fierce battle. At last, Art reached the seashore and boarded his coracle once again. On an island in the distance was the palace where Delvecum was imprisoned. Around the palace was a fence. On every spike of the fence was a man's head. These were all the brave young princes who had tried to rescue Delvecum. Art looked into the staring eyes of the murdered princes. How could he succeed where so many had failed? But then he saw another face, the loveliest he had ever seen. It belonged to Delvecum, and she was smiling at Art. He called to her, "Come away with me, Delvecum." Delvecum's smile faded. Her mother was a witch, and her father was a giant. "I cannot leave," she called out to Art. "My parents will not let me, and they will kill you, just like all the others." Before Art could think of a plan, he heard a terrible growl. Behind him was Delvecum's mother. She was terrifying. She was called Doghead, and she really did have a dog's head with vicious teeth and a drooling tongue. Her foul breath poisoned the air around her. She leapt straight at Art, her jaws aiming for his throat, and so began a long and terrible battle. But finally, Art's sword flashed in the sunlight, and Doghead lay dead, her dog's head sliced from her body by Art's silver sword. Art was still gasping for breath when he heard another terrible roar. Morgan, Delvecum's father, was coming towards him. Morgan was a giant, his huge body covered in iron scales. He had claws instead of fingers. His eyes flashed red fire as he spat out the words, "Time for you to die." "Not if I can help it," said Art, raising his sword. But Art's sword could not pierce the metal scales that covered Morgan. Within minutes, the monster had brought him to the ground. As the dreadful claws came closer to his neck, Morgan gave a howl of victory, but Art raised his sword and plunged it deep down into the giant's open mouth. Morgan, too, was dead. Delvecum came running towards Art, finally freed from her prison. They climbed into the coracle to begin the long journey back to Tara. When Art and Delvecum reached Ireland, it was grayer and drier and bleaker than ever. But as soon as Delvecum put her foot on the soil, green grass sprang up. Everywhere she went, flowers bloomed and birds began to sing. And so they traveled to Tara, leaving a trail of beauty behind them. All along the way, people came out of their houses to see them. Spring has come back to Ireland. With Art and Delvecum, they cheered. Con and Becama stood waiting for them at the gates of Tara. Art said, "Look, father, I have brought Delvecum home." And Delvecum said, "Now Ireland will be a happy land again, but Becama must leave, because it was she who brought misery to Ireland." Everyone nodded. Even the king. Becama pulled her green cloak around her and disappeared, never to be seen again. And Art and Delvecum ruled Ireland happily for many, many years. The end.